this is Dancin in the kitchen. This is my galley kitchen. We had to figure out how we were going to make room enough so you could see what I'm doing, and also allow for lights and cameras and things like that. But there's nothing in this show that isn't here in real life. This is the only kitchen there is. There's no other kitchen on the other side of the wall with a group of cooks doing the real work. And nobody else does the shopping or the washing up. This is reality. Which means, if you can do it here, in this galley kitchen, you can do it most likely anywhere. Today, I'd like to share with you the classic and beloved dish, risotto. This traditional Italian preparation is really simple, but the result is elegant. There are only a few basic things you need to keep in mind. The first thing is you'll need at least 3 times as much hot liquid or stock as you do rice. Have a little more on hand, just in case. Here I have 1½ cups of rice, and in the pot now behind me, 5 cups of stock. The second is that the kind of rice really matters. Arborio rice is the most easily obtained here in the US. In Italy, Carnaroli and Bioloni Nano are used. The point is, you want a plump, short, and starchy rice, which will give you a creamy, almost flowing texture, but not soup. The third is that there is hardly any limitation on what flavors you introduce to the basic recipe. Ordinarily, a little finely chopped onion is sautéed in some olive oil and butter. You see, I've cheated and I've already got most of the onion chopped, because otherwise you'd be sitting here watching me chop up food most of the time. Very simple to do. We'll just put that in here. And the other thing that's pretty traditional, and your option of course, is some finely chopped mushrooms. I like the onions and the mushrooms to be about the same size as the rice once they've cooked down. So they can be a little bit bigger right now, but get them pretty small. It's a matter of aesthetics to some degree, but these are flavor compounds, not entirely different ingredients. While I'm doing this, a word about mushrooms. The little button mushrooms you buy in the store are immature. They're the babies. These are cremini mushrooms that I'm using, and they're the adults. And when you get to be grandparent, you get to be called a portobello. Sometimes you'll see cremini mushrooms referred to as baby bellas. That's because they're all the same mushroom. So if you're having a hard time finding one particular mushroom you like, you can substitute another. They give somewhat different flavors, but not a whole lot. So, here we go. Risotto coming up. First, the finely diced onions go into this big pot where there's butter and oil. You can use just olive oil, make this whole thing completely vegan if you want, but butter is pretty traditional, so I'm doing both, olive oil and butter. And by the way, if you add some olive oil to your butter as you go, you'll discover that the butter won't burn. It's kind of like coats the butter. The second thing we'll do is add the mushrooms. Both of these together will only take a few minutes, so you need to be patient, and my advice to you is that as you do this, once you've got them mixed and in, don't stir them around. Let them sit there and do their thing. The flavors will be much better if you don't keep touching it. You could also add some minced garlic at the end as well. I'm using a microplane to mince the garlic, so you won't get pieces of garlic in the risotto. very simple gadget. It's actually a takeoff on the hasp that you can buy in a hardware store to shave down little bits of wood. Lots of things in the kitchen are like that. They have some other use as well. If you drop the garlic the way I've just done, just reach in and take it out. This is a large clove, and you can decide how much, if any, you want. There's no rule here. The only thing that mattered was that ratio that I mentioned to you earlier, which is 1 part rice to more than 3 parts hot stock. The garlic will only take 10 seconds. You don't want it to brown. Then the rice is added and stirred until every grain is coated with the oil and the butter. And lastly, before anything else happens, we're going to add some white wine. If you're using a non-stick pan, you won't get the bits in the bottom that are really good, but in this case I'm using a Dutch oven, and you'll see that I do have brown bits in the bottom called fond. And the white wine, just a half a cup or so, deglazes the bottom of the pot, so you get all those bits up. If you've got a non-stick pan, add the white wine anyway, the flavor's good. The alcohol's going to cook away, for those of you who don't want to have alcohol in your food. It's just the flavor. And may I suggest that you use the same wine to drink as you use to make the risotto. I'm going to stir this now until the liquid, the wine, has been absorbed. It won't take long. You'll be surprised. Once you've coated that rice with that oil and butter and allowed it to begin to break down the exterior starch, things go quick. At this point, the traditional method is to add the hot broth, a ladle or two at a time. Each time you stir in the mixture until the liquid is absorbed. But if you don't have the patience or the stamina or the time to do it, and you want something sturdier than white rice, like short-grained brown rice, or even the ancient grain farro, you can use a Dutch oven. As I mentioned earlier, that's what I'm using here. And perhaps you noticed when I pointed at the rice earlier that it wasn't white rice. In fact, it is short-grain brown rice. And the method I'm using here not only saves time, but enables you to cook heartier grains. Basically, I'm going to put 3/4 of the hot liquid in this pot all at once. Stir, reduce the heat to medium-low, and cover. Depending on what kind of rice you've used, it will take between 20 and 30 minutes to absorb most of the liquid. And in the process, you'll only need to stir it 2 or 3 times. When enough time has elapsed so that the liquid's all absorbed, you can add the last bit of stock. Let's take a look and see how well it was done. It's almost done, and you can see by the looks that it's much creamier than it was to start with. And I'm going to add the last little bit of stock now and stir that around until that also is absorbed. I'm going to up the heat again. Give it a stir. Now we'll be back to the old method. This no more cover. This is just going to cook on high with my spoon in the pot till it's all done. It should be probably another 3 minutes. Here is creamy risotto, and we're going to do a couple of things that are traditional to make it even creamier. The first thing is a bit of butter, unsalted butter. Boom. As if it weren't rich enough, right? And just stir that in. It'll all melt. And the other traditional ingredient is cheese. Most recipes will tell you to add Parmesan cheese, and I like Parmesan cheese. That's what I'm adding here. But I also like to add a mix of both Parmesan and Pecorino Romano, which is what this is. I'm using that same microplane I used for the garlic to really grate the cheese up fine. It really works. It's very easy. And you get a very, very fine string of cheese. It'll melt instantly into the rice. And the butter and the cheese together enhance this creamy texture. As if that weren't enough, to gild the lily, so to speak, I'm going to add some asparagus tips. Well, these are actually the tips and the top part of the asparagus, very tender and thin. I'm going to just dump that in. They were steamed ahead of time and cooled, so they're just warming up inside the risotto, and you can see it now in all its beauty. How's that? Voila! Risotto with asparagus. Something you can enjoy for lunch or dinner, and frankly, even breakfast. You can use other things besides asparagus. Frankly, anything that takes your fancy. Just some chopped parsley or green onion will brighten it up. Want to be very different? Saute some chopped cashews with that onion and add a little coconut milk and curry paste to the stock. And at the end, add some chopped apricots or other dried fruit, right at the very end of the cooking time. Indian risotto? Italian biryani? Up to you. Thanks for watching. We'll look at other kinds of fusion cooking where ingredients and styles from all over the world get to meet and play with each other next time on Dancin' in the Kitchen. In the meantime, you can buy my book, A Dance in the Kitchen, Joyful World Cooking, and go to my website, www.fusion-world.com, and order it using PayPal. And while you're there, look at my ongoing experiments in world cuisine. Keep it simple. Keep it fresh. Wash your hands and use them. And keep on dancing.